Ryan Miller wiped the sweat from his brow as he tightened the last bolt on the power coupling. The ship's engine room was hot, much hotter than humans found comfortable. But the Rexians who owned the vessel preferred it that way. Not that anyone cared what humans wanted anymore. 50 years had passed since the ships appeared in Earth's skies. 50 years since humanity learned they were not alone in the universe. 50 years of living under the thumb of the Galactic Council. "Human, are you finished yet?" The harsh voice of Supervisor Kraz echoed through the cramped maintenance tunnel. His blue scales shimmered under the bright work lights. "Yes, sir." "All fixed," Ryan replied, keeping his eyes down. He had learned long ago that looking a council official in the eyes was seen as a challenge. "Good. Move on to level 3. The atmosphere regulators are malfunctioning again." Kraz didn't wait for a response before walking away, his tail dragging, on the metal floor. Ryan gathered his tools and headed toward the lift. As he walked, he passed 2 other humans doing similar repair work. They exchanged quick nods, a small gesture of solidarity the aliens rarely noticed. The council ships that orbited Earth were massive, each one bigger than the largest cities humans had built before the occupation. They served as constant reminders of who was in charge now. Ryan entered his access code into the lift panel, a code that gave him limited access to specific areas of the ship. What Supervisor Kraz didn't know was that Ryan's real job had little to do with fixing power couplings. The lift doors closed, and Ryan quickly pulled a small device from a hidden pocket in his work uniform. He tapped a pattern on its surface and spoke quietly. "Eagle to Nest. Maintenance completed on Sector 4. Package delivered." A woman's voice replied through the device. "Nest confirms. Good work, Eagle. Return to base." Ryan smiled slightly as he tucked the device away. The maintenance he had just performed included planting a tiny data collector that would record all communications passing through that section of the ship. 50 years ago, Earth had surrendered to the Galactic Council. After a brief but devastating war, humanity's weapons had been no match for the advanced technology of the aliens. But humans were nothing if not adaptable. The lift doors opened on level 3, and Ryan stepped out, his face once again wearing the neutral expression of a compliant worker. In a council research facility on the other side of the planet, Lisa Green carefully examined a tissue sample through a microscope. The purple cell structure of the Zinthar specimen was fascinating. Their unique biology allowed them to survive in environments that would kill most species. "Dr. Green, how is the analysis coming along?" asked Dr. Vellum, her Zinthar supervisor. "I've identified the protein sequence you were interested in," Lisa said, stepping back from the microscope. "Would you like to see?" Dr. Vellum moved his large frame to the microscope and looked through the eyepiece. "Excellent work. This will help with our agricultural development project." "Thank you, sir," Lisa replied politely. What Dr. Vellum didn't know was that Lisa had already made a complete copy of the data for herself. Tonight she would transfer it to a secure server where human scientists working in secret would use it for a very different purpose. The Council claimed they had integrated Earth into their galactic community for humanity's own good. They said humans were too violent, too unpredictable to be allowed free access to the stars. For the protection of all species, humans needed guidance and supervision. In practice, this meant humans were second-class citizens, even on their own planet. They could work in approved jobs, live in designated areas, and receive the education the Council deemed appropriate, mostly focused on serving the needs of their new galactic overlords. When Lisa finished her shift, she took the public transport train back to the human residential sector. The sleek vehicle moved silently through the city that had once been San Francisco. Now it was called Administrative Region 7, one of the Council's main bases on Earth. The tall, crystal-like buildings of the alien quarter gleamed in the sunset. They towered over the much smaller human living structures, a physical reminder of the power imbalance that defined life on Earth now. Lisa got off at her stop and walked 3 blocks to a small coffee shop. The place was run by an old man named Joe, who made decent coffee despite the Council's restrictions on luxury goods for humans. She ordered a cup and sat in the corner booth. 5 minutes later, a man in a medical worker's uniform sat across from her Beautiful sunset today, he said casually. Yes, especially through the western hills, Lisa replied with the coded response. The man nodded slightly. I'm Alan. Central sent me. I have the samples, Lisa said quietly, sliding a small data chip across the table. Synthar cell structure and metabolic pathways. Complete data set. Alan took the chip and slipped it into his pocket. This is exactly what we needed. The work you're doing is crucial, Lisa. Any news about the timeline? She asked. It's accelerating. The council is planning something big. They're bringing in more ships, more troops. Lisa frowned. They must suspect something. Maybe. Or maybe they're just tightening their grip. Either way, we're ready to move soon. Alan looked around to make sure no one was listening. Have you heard about Lazarus? Lisa shook her head. It's need to know. But let's just say that the council's worst fears about humanity might be about to come true. He smiled slightly. You should get to the meeting tonight. Warehouse 37, Old Dock area. 22 hours. After Alan left, Lisa finished her coffee slowly, her mind racing. The resistance had been gathering strength for decades, working in absolute secrecy. The council believed humans were compliant, broken. They thought the occasional small acts of rebellion were just isolated incidents. They were wrong. High Counselor Zivrak stood at the viewing window of the main council ship, looking down at the blue planet below. Earth was a problem that never seemed to go away completely. The reports from the surface High Counselor, said his aide, a thin Velian with pale green skin. Zivrax took the data pad and scrolled through it. More equipment malfunctions? This is the third time this month. Yes, sir. The human technicians claim it's due to compatibility issues between our technology and Earth's environment. Zivrax made a dismissive gesture with his upper limb. Excuses. Their primitive understanding of our systems is the real issue. Should we bring in more of our own technicians? No, Zivrax said after a moment. That would be too expensive. Humans are cheap labor. Just increase the oversight. And run deeper. Background checks on the maintenance crews. As you wish, High Counselor. When his aide left, Zivrax continued staring at Earth. Something felt wrong, but he couldn't quite identify what it was. The humans had been conquered so easily. Their resistance crushed so completely. After 50 years, they should be fully integrated into the council hierarchy, content with their place at the bottom. Yet sometimes, when he looked into their eyes, he saw something that disturbed him. A patience. A waiting. But that was absurd. What could they possibly be waiting for? The gap between human technology and council technology was too vast to overcome. Their military had been dismantled, their governments replaced with council administrators. Humans were no threat, just a useful, if sometimes troublesome, resource. Zivrax turned away from the window. He had a council meeting to prepare for, and the situation on Earth was the least of his concerns. He had no idea how wrong he was. Carol Winters smiled politely as she entered the Grand Council chamber. The massive room was designed to impress and intimidate, with its high ceilings and ornate decorations from 100 different worlds. As Earth's appointed representative, she had a seat but not a vote. That was made very clear when she was given the position 5 years ago. Representative Winters, how nice of you to join us, said Councillor Trelax, one of the few council members, who treated her with anything resembling respect. The honor is mine, Councillor, Carol replied with a small bow, exactly as protocol demanded. She took her seat at the far end of the chamber, away from the powerful members who actually made decisions. Her job, as the council saw it, was to listen and relay instructions back to the human leadership. What little of it the council allowed to exist. What the council didn't know was that Carol had a perfect memory. Every word spoken in these meetings, every document shown on the screens, every side conversation between counselors that they thought too quiet for human ears, she remembered it all. And she reported it all to the real human leadership. The main screen lit up with images of the newest defense system being installed around valuable council worlds. The Aegis shield system is now operational on 7 of our core worlds, announced the defense minister, a bulky Dravian with metallic skin. Once fully deployed, it will provide complete protection against any known weapons system. Carol watched carefully as technical details flashed across the screen. The aliens never worried about showing such information in front of her. What could one human possibly do with knowledge of technology so advanced? When the meeting ended 3 hours later, Carol made her way to the transport bay where her husband Daniel waited. As a Council transport pilot, he had clearance to fly between Earth and the Council station. "How was your day, dear?" Daniel asked as they boarded his small shuttle. "Oh, the usual. Sitting quietly while they decide the fate of our world," Carol replied. Once they were alone in the shuttle and Daniel had started the engines, their demeanor changed. He activated a small device that would scramble any listening devices. "They've completed the Aegis shield on 7 worlds," Carol said. Her voice now crisp and professional. "I saw the technical specs. The main control hub routes through a quantum channel exactly like we suspected." Daniel nodded as he guided the shuttle away from the station. "That matches what I've been seeing on my transport routes. They're moving. A lot of equipment to those 7 worlds. Did you map the new hyperspace routes?" "All of them," Daniel said with a small smile. "The Council keeps adding more security checkpoints, but they never question why a human pilot might need to take detailed navigation readings. They assume we're just being careful because our reflexes are slower than theirs." The shuttle entered Earth's atmosphere, following the designated approach path to Administrative Region 12, what used to be called Boston before the occupation. As they flew over the city, they could see the contrast between the gleaming alien structures and the more modest human areas. 50 years of occupation had changed the face of Earth forever. "We have a meeting tonight," Carol said quietly. "Central Command says it's time for Phase 2. Daniel's hands tightened on the controls. "Already? I thought we'd have more time. Something's changed." The Council is getting nervous, though they're trying not to show it. The shuttle landed at the designated port, and they made their way through security with practiced ease. Their status as cooperative humans in service to the Council gave them certain privileges, like living in a private home instead of the crowded human housing blocks. That night, they made their way to an old underground parking structure that had been abandoned years ago when the Council banned most private vehicles for humans. The Resistance had dozens of such meeting places, constantly rotating to avoid detection. Inside, about 30 people had gathered. Carol recognized most of them, key Resistance members from various cells. The fact that so many were gathered in one place meant something big was happening. Kevin Ross stood at the front of the group. As a translator for the Council military, he had access to information even Carol couldn't get. "Thank you all for coming," Kevin began. "What I'm about to share comes from the highest security archives of the Council. Records so old and classified that most Council members don't even know they exist." He activated a small projector that displayed ancient Council text. "I've been working on translating these archives for 3 years. They tell the real story of why the Council came to Earth." The room was silent as Kevin continued. "We were told they came because they detected our nuclear weapons, our wars, our violent tendencies. That was a lie. They came because they were afraid." He showed a timeline of human development from the discovery of radio to the first moon landing. What took most Council races thousands of years, we did in less than a century. Our rate of technological advancement terrified them. Their projections showed that if left alone, humanity would surpass the Council's technology within 3 generations. Murmurs spread through the group as Kevin displayed more translated documents. The Council has conquered other races before, but always for resources or strategic positions. We were the first they conquered out of fear of what we might become. Carol stepped forward. "This confirms what we've suspected. The Council's treatment of Earth isn't about protecting the galaxy from us. It's about protecting themselves from competition." Daniel joined her. "And they've been hiding evidence of our adaptability from their own people. Most Council citizens believe the propaganda about violent, unstable humans." Kevin nodded. "But there's more. These archives contain details about early Council experiments on humans. They were trying to identify what makes us different. They found something they called the innovation gene, a combination of neurological patterns that allows humans to make creative leaps other species can't. Alan Brooks, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. That explains the breeding restrictions. The rules about who can have children and how many. They're trying to control our evolution. Exactly, Kevin said. But they've failed. Our birth rate appears to be exactly what they mandate. But we've been hiding children for decades. There are 20% more humans than official council records show. Patricia Hernandez, a specialist in communications systems, raised her hand. The sabotage operations are all in place. We can trigger system failures across their network whenever we give the signal. What about Lazarus? Someone asked from the back. Carol looked at Kevin, who nodded slightly. Lazarus is ready, she said. Admiral Clark confirms that the fleet is operational. 50 years of reverse engineering their technology while adding our own innovations has paid off. Alan looked shocked. Fleet? What fleet? The one we've been building in secret bases on the far side of the moon and in the asteroid belt, Daniel explained. Using materials and parts we've been siphoning off from Council shipments for decades. The Council's own supply system has been feeding our resistance, Patricia added with a smile. Every time they send materials to build their ships and stations, a small percentage disappears into our projects. Carol held up her hand for silence. In 3 days, the Council is holding their Centennial Assembly. Every major leader will be present. That's when we launch Lazarus. They won't be expecting us, Kevin said. Their security systems are designed to detect their own technology, but our ships and weapons are hybrids, different enough that they won't recognize the threat until it's too late. As the meeting continued, none of them noticed the small maintenance drone that hovered briefly near the ceiling vent before moving on. Its programmed patrol route didn't include this abandoned area, but a small malfunction had sent it off course. In 3 days, the fate of Earth would change forever. And the Galactic Council's worst fears were about to come true. 3 days passed quickly. On the morning of the Centennial Assembly, High Counselor Zivrak stood before the gathered representatives of 57 spacefaring species. The grand chamber of the Council's main station glittered with decorations. This was the most important political event of the decade. Friends, allies, honored representatives, Zivrax began, his voice carrying through the massive room. For 1,000 years, the Galactic Council has maintained peace and order throughout known space. Today, we celebrate our continued unity and strength. As he spoke, no one noticed Carol Winters pressing a small button hidden in her bracelet. The signal traveled faster than light through the secret network the human resistance had built over decades. Deep in the hidden base on the far side of the moon, Admiral Susan Clark received the signal. She stood on the bridge of the largest ship humans had ever built. From the outside, it looked unimpressive, almost primitive compared to Council vessels, but its rough exterior hid technology that had never been seen before. All ships, prepare for launch, she commanded. Operation Lazarus is now active. Across the lunar surface, hidden bay doors slid open. One by one, 30 ships rose from their hiding places. They looked like they were built from scrap metal, with odd angles and mismatched parts. Council sensors would register them as mining, vessels, or garbage scows. Nothing threatening. On the Council station, Zivrax continued his speech. We have brought order to chaos, knowledge to ignorance, and protection to the vulnerable. The Council's wisdom has. An aide rushed in and whispered urgently in his ear. Zivrax's expression changed from confusion to disbelief. Excuse me, he said to the assembled delegates. There appears to be a minor security situation. In the control room, Council Commander Vrock stared at the sensor readings in confusion. What are these ships? They're coming from the dark side. Earth's moon. Unknown vessel types, sir, replied his officer. Primitive construction, possibly human mining ships that strayed from their designated zones. Vrock relaxed slightly. Warn them to return to their authorized areas immediately or face penalties. The communications officer sent the message. No response came. They're ignoring our warnings, sir. Then they'll learn respect. Target the lead vessel with a low-power warning shot, Vrock ordered. The weapons officer complied. A beam of energy shot from the station toward Admiral Clark's ship, but something impossible happened. The energy dissipated against an invisible barrier. "Sir," the weapons officer shouted, "they have shields." "Impossible," Vrock said. "Human. Technology can't possibly—" Before he could finish, the sensors lit up with new alerts. The human ships were powering up weapon systems, not the crude missiles humans had used 50 years ago, but something different, something the Council's systems couldn't identify. On her bridge, Admiral Clark gave the order. Target their weapon systems only. Show them what humans can do. The human fleet fired in perfect unison. Beams of blue-white energy struck the Council station's shields. Instead of being stopped, they passed through as if the shields weren't. There on the station, systems began shutting down, not destroyed but disabled. "How is this possible?" Vrock demanded. "Their weapons shouldn't penetrate our shields." In the Council chamber, the lights flickered. The delegates began to panic. Carol Winters stood calmly in the chaos. She walked to the center of the room and somehow, despite the noise, her voice carried clearly. "The Galactic Council's session is temporarily suspended," she announced. "This station is now under human control. No one will be harmed if you cooperate." Zivrax pushed through the crowd to confront her. "What madness is this? You have no weapons, no authority." Carol smiled. "Look outside, High Counselor." The large viewing screens showed the human fleet surrounding the station. More shocking were the images coming from Earth. In every major city, hidden defense systems were activating. Council forces found themselves contained by energy fields they couldn't penetrate. "This is impossible," Zivrax whispered. "No," Carol replied. "This is what happens when you try to cage humanity, instead of working with us as equals." Meanwhile, on Earth, Lieutenant John Baker led a team through the streets of Administrative Region 7. They wore strange suits that looked like ordinary clothes but could deflect Council weapons. "Move quickly," John ordered. "Secure the communication hub." Council security forces fired at them. The energy beams hit John's team but did nothing. The suits absorbed the energy and kept them safe. John's team reached the communication center and took control without firing a shot. Similar scenes played out across Earth as humans reclaimed their cities. In a Council research facility, Scientist Cruel rushed through the halls in panic. He reached the communication room and sent an urgent message to the Council fleet: "Emergency. Humans are using biological weapons designed specifically for each Council race." This wasn't true, but the carefully planted rumors had their intended effect. Council forces began to retreat rather than risk exposure to weapons that might target their specific biology. Back on the station, Carol addressed the assembled delegates again. "For 50 years, the Council has controlled Earth based on lies. You told your people we were dangerous because of our violence. The truth is, you feared our creativity and adaptability." She activated a display showing the true history the Resistance had discovered. "Your own records prove it. Earth was quarantined not to protect the galaxy from us, but to protect your power from competition." As she spoke, Admiral Clark's fleet continued to disable Council ships without destroying them. The human weapons had been specifically designed to target power and weapon systems while leaving life support intact. On Earth, Major Nancy Rodriguez coordinated the simultaneous liberation of human colonies on Mars and Europa. The Council forces there surrendered quickly when they realized they were surrounded. In Council laboratories across the solar system, alien scientists watched in horror as human servants revealed themselves as Resistance operatives who had been gathering intelligence for years. Dr. Vellum turned to find Lisa Green standing behind him, no longer playing the role of the helpful assistant. "How long have you been planning this?" he asked. "Since the day you arrived," Lisa replied. 50 years is a long time to watch and learn." Cruel's panicked message had reached the Council fleet gathering at the edge of the solar system. There, Commander General Drax received conflicting reports. Some said humans had developed superweapons. Others claimed human ships could pass through solid matter. The confusion was exactly what the Resistance had planned. Drax hesitated, unsure if he should attack or retreat. While he debated, Human ships from the asteroid belt revealed themselves surrounding his position. On the council station, Zivrax could only watch as 50 years of control unraveled in a single day. "What do you want?" he finally asked Carol. "What we've always wanted," she replied. "To be treated as equals. To join the galactic community on fair terms. Not as servants or children or savages, but as partners." He stared at her in disbelief. "You did all this just to force negotiations?" Carol shook her head. "We did all this to prove a point. Humanity could have destroyed the Council today. We chose not to. That should tell you something about who we really are." As reports continued to come in from across the solar system, the truth became clear. In just a few hours, humanity had taken control of every Council facility around Earth. Not through superior numbers or overwhelming force, but through planning, innovation, and patience. The Council's worst fear had come true. Humans had surpassed them, not just technologically but strategically, and now the galaxy would never be the same. News of Earth's rebellion spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. The Council had always controlled information tightly, but they couldn't contain this story. Within days, every inhabited world had heard how humans had overcome their oppressors without destroying them. On the planet Vetrix, home to a species that had been under Council protection for 3 centuries, crowds gathered in the streets. They carried signs with human words on them: freedom and equality. Council security forces tried to disperse them but were outnumbered. Similar uprisings began on a dozen worlds. Species that had long accepted their place in the Council hierarchy suddenly questioned everything. 1 week after what humans now called Liberation Day, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. This time they met on a neutral space station, as their main headquarters remained under human control. The chamber was tense. Many delegates who had once been unified now sat in clearly divided groups. "This meeting of the Emergency Council is now in session," announced Acting High Counselor Trelax, who had taken over after Zivrax was detained by humans. "Our first order of business is the human situation," Trelax continued. "Admiral Clark of Earth has requested to address this body." Angry murmurs filled the room. Counselor Drex, leader of the Hardline faction, stood up. "Why should we listen to rebels? The humans must be punished for their actions. I propose immediate military action with our full remaining fleet." Several delegates shouted their agreement. Others looked uncertain. Counselor Mira, an elder from one of the oldest Council races, raised her hand for silence. "Before we vote on war, perhaps we should hear what the humans have to say. They could have destroyed us but chose restraint. That deserves at least a moment of our time." The delegates argued for nearly an hour before finally agreeing to hear Admiral Clark. The large view screen activated, showing her aboard her flagship. "Delegates of the Galactic Council," Susan began. "I speak today not as a conqueror, but as a representative of a people who wish to join the galactic community as equals." She looked calm and confident in her simple uniform, with none of the ornate decorations Council military leaders typically wore. "For 50 years, humans have lived under Council rule. We were told it was for our own good, that we were too violent to be trusted with advanced technology. But we now know the truth. You feared our potential, our ability to adapt and grow." Susan paused, looking at the faces of the delegates. "Today I offer you a choice. Continue to see us as enemies and we will defend ourselves, or recognize Earth as an equal member of the galactic community, and we can move forward together." Counselor Drex laughed bitterly. "Equal? You're barely out of your Stone Age compared to our civilizations that have existed for thousands of years. What could humans possibly offer as equals?" Susan smiled slightly. "Dr. Taylor, would you like to answer that question?" The view screen split to show Dr. Eric Taylor in what appeared to be a laboratory. Behind him was a device unlike anything the Council members had seen before. "This is our offering," Dr. Taylor said. "We call it the Quantum Bridge. It allows instant travel between any 2 points in space, regardless of distance." The Council chamber erupted in disbelief. "Impossible!" shouted several delegates at once. Dr. Taylor continued calmly. We developed this by combining Council technology with human innovation. Our ships don't use standard hyperdrives. They use early versions of this technology, which is why your sensors couldn't properly identify them. He activated the device. A doorway of blue light appeared in his lab. He stepped through it and vanished. Seconds later, he walked into the Council chamber from a side door. Having traveled instantly across thousands of light years, the delegates fell silent in shock. This is just one example of what cooperation between humans and other species could achieve, Dr. Taylor said. Imagine what else we might discover together. The Council meeting dissolved into chaos. Some delegates demanded immediate alliance with humans to gain access to the new technology. Others insisted this proved humans were too dangerous and needed to be eliminated. While the Council argued, Commander Dax took matters into his own hands. As leader of the Council's 8th Fleet, he commanded 12 warships equipped with planet-killer weapons. Without authorization, he ordered his fleet to Earth. The humans must be eliminated before they spread their influence further, he told his officers. We will strike their homeworld and end this rebellion. What Dax didn't know was that Officer Samantha Powell had infiltrated his command ship months ago. As a human disguised as a Council worker, she had been gathering intelligence on the planet-killer weapons. When she learned of Dax's plan, she sent an emergency signal to Earth. Then she made her way to the ship's engine room. The 8th Fleet emerged from hyperspace near Earth, weapons powering up. Dax stood on his bridge, ready to give the order to fire. Sir, our engines are shutting down, reported his engineer suddenly. All ships report the same issue. How is this possible? Dax demanded. Restart them immediately. We can't, sir. The security codes have been changed. On Earth, Admiral Clark received Samantha's warning in time. She dispatched a small team of ships to intercept the fleet. Don't destroy them, she ordered. Disable and board. When Dax saw the human ships approaching, he expected to be destroyed. Instead, they surrounded his fleet and used precision weapons to disable their remaining systems. They could wipe us out, his second-in-command whispered. Why don't they? Dax had no answer. Back at the Council meeting, the delegates had split into 3 clear factions. The war faction, led by Drex, demanded immediate military action against Earth. The peace faction, led by Mira, argued for accepting humans as equals. The third group, the largest, remained undecided. We must vote, Trelax said finally. The future of the Council depends on what we decide today. Before the vote could begin, news arrived of Dax's failed attack on Earth. More importantly, they learned how humans had responded, by capturing rather than destroying the fleet. Even when directly threatened with extinction, they showed restraint, Mira pointed out. Does this sound like the violent species we've been taught to fear? The vote was close, but in the end, the peace faction prevailed. The Galactic Council would open formal diplomatic relations with Earth. Not everyone accepted this decision. Drex and his supporters stormed out of the chamber, vowing to continue the fight against human influence. This is not over, he warned. Those who fear what humanity will do to our established order will rally to us. Mira watched them go with sadness. Change is always difficult, especially for those who have held power for so long. On Earth, Carol, Winters received news of the Council's vote with cautious optimism. It's just the beginning, she told Admiral Clark. We've won our freedom, but earning true acceptance will take time. Susan nodded. At least now we have that time. No more hiding, no more pretending to be less than we are. As they spoke, human ships were already helping Council worlds affected by the uprisings. The message was clear. Humanity sought partnership, not domination. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had predicted, and humanity was leading that change, just as the Council had always feared they might. 6 months after Liberation Day, Earth looked different. The tall crystal buildings of the Council remained, but they no longer towered alone. New structures had risen beside them, blending human and alien designs in ways that felt both familiar and strange. In what was once the Council's main headquarters in Administrative Region 7, now simply called San Francisco again, representatives from 32 species gathered in a circular chamber. Unlike the old council hall with its raised platform for leaders and lower seats for less important members, this room placed everyone at the same level. Dr. Catherine Nelson stood at the center, presenting her findings to the newly formed Galactic Science Cooperative. By combining Xinthar cellular regeneration techniques with human stem cell research, we've developed a treatment that can cure 7 previously incurable diseases, she explained. This is just the beginning of what our combined knowledge can achieve. Scientists from a dozen worlds asked questions, suggested improvements, and offered to contribute their own research. This open exchange of ideas would have been unthinkable under the old council, which had carefully controlled the flow of scientific knowledge. Dr. Vellum, the Xinthar who had once been Lisa Green's supervisor, now worked as her colleague. The speed of advancement when we work together is unsettling, he admitted privately to Catherine after the meeting, but also exhilarating. Catherine smiled. That's the human influence. We've always been impatient when it comes to discovery. In orbit above Earth, a joint defense force patrolled the system. Admiral Clark had worked with Counselor Trelax to establish this new approach to security. Council ships flew alongside human vessels, their crews learning to work together despite decades of distrust. Commander Gregory Howard, once a hidden resistance fighter, now captained a mixed-species crew aboard the patrol ship Unity. His first officer was a Dravian named Kell, whose metallic skin gleamed in the light of Earth's sun. Incoming transmission from the Centauri system, reported their communications officer, a young human named Olivia Wilson. Gregory nodded. Put it through. The screen showed a council ship under attack by what appeared to be pirates. This had become more common in recent months as the old power structures changed, creating opportunities for outlaws and rebels. All ships in range, we request immediate assistance, called the council captain. Plot an intercept course, Gregory ordered. Maximum speed. As the Unity changed direction, Kell approached him privately. 6 months ago, many of my people would have celebrated seeing a council ship in trouble, he said quietly. Including me. Gregory nodded. And many humans would have too. But that's not the future we're building. The Unity arrived in time to drive off the attackers and help the damaged council vessel. When their captain came aboard to thank them, he seemed surprised to find humans and council species working together so efficiently. I had heard rumors, he said to Gregory, but seeing it firsthand is different. Perhaps there is hope for this new arrangement after all. Far from Earth, Counselor Drex and his followers had established a new base in a distant system. They called themselves the True Council and rejected all cooperation with humans. They've corrupted everything the Council stood for, Drex told his supporters. First humans, then who? Will we give equal voice to every primitive species that learns to build a spaceship? His audience shouted their agreement. But there were fewer of them each time he spoke. Many who had initially joined him were drifting back to the new Galactic Assembly, attracted by the rapid advances being shared openly. Drex knew time was running out. We must strike soon, before they grow too strong, he told his military commander. Prepare our forces. The commander looked uncomfortable. Sir, our intelligence suggests their defensive capabilities far exceed our own. A direct attack would be suicide. Then we'll use subterfuge, Drex hissed. Find their weaknesses. Everyone has them. But finding human weaknesses had proven harder than expected. The very adaptability that had frightened the Council for so long made humans difficult to predict or outmaneuver. Back on Earth, in a small garden outside the new assembly building, Carol Winters sat with Counselor Mira. The elder alien had become an unexpected ally in building the new galactic order. I've studied the reports from worlds that have adopted human-style democratic systems, Mira said. The transition has been smoother than anyone predicted. Carol nodded. People everywhere want similar things. Safety, purpose, the freedom to make their own choices. The old council forgot that. Or perhaps never understood it, Mira replied. Many council species evolved in more rigid social structures. The concept of individual choice doesn't come naturally to all. That's why we need each other, Carol said. Different perspectives make us stronger together than apart. As they spoke, a small ship landed nearby. It was unlike any design they had seen before, clearly built by a species neither human nor council. The ship's door opened, and 3 tall, slender beings emerged. They had pale blue skin and 4 arms, with large eyes that reflected light like mirrors. Nicole Johnson, Earth's chief diplomat, went to greet them. As the human who had successfully negotiated Earth's entry into the galactic community, she had become skilled at first contact situations. "Welcome to Earth," she said, bowing slightly. "I am Nicole Johnson, representing the Galactic Assembly." The tallest visitor returned the gesture. "I am Zenith, lead explorer of the Nulari. We have traveled far after detecting your quantum communications. We wish to learn if there is a place for us in your community of worlds." Nicole smiled warmly. "There is always place for new friends here. Unlike the old ways, we don't require centuries of observation before welcoming new species. We believe in meeting as equals from the start." The Nulari seemed surprised by this approach. "Our scans detected many different species on your world, living and working together. How is this possible without conflict?" "Oh, we have conflicts," Nicole laughed. "Plenty of them. But we resolve them through discussion and compromise, not dominance. It's messy sometimes, but it works better than the alternatives." She invited the Nulari to tour the assembly and meet representatives from other worlds. As they walked, the visitors' initial caution gave way to curiosity and then to excitement. In the main assembly hall, Admiral Clark addressed the gathered representatives about Drex's growing threats. "We know the True Council is planning some kind of action against us," she said. "But we won't respond with preemptive strikes or intimidation. Those are the old ways, the ways that led to oppression." She activated a display showing the expanding network of worlds that had joined the new Galactic Assembly. "Our strength isn't in weapons or domination. It's in cooperation, in the free exchange of ideas and resources, in treating each species with respect while celebrating our differences." As Susan spoke, the Nulari visitors watched with interest from a viewing area. "Is this truly how they govern?" Zenith asked Nicole. "Through consensus rather than command?" "It's how we're learning to govern," Nicole replied honestly. "We don't have all the answers, but we're finding a better path together." Later that day, news arrived that 3 more council worlds had abandoned Drex to join the assembly. His power base was shrinking by the week. In his office overlooking the bay, Daniel Winters reviewed the reports with a sense of satisfaction. "The council's worst fear did come true," he said to Carol when she joined him. "Humanity changed everything." "Not exactly as they imagined, though," Carol pointed out. "They thought we'd conquer or destroy. Instead, we're building something new, something better for everyone." Outside their window, ships from a dozen worlds moved through the sky as the sun set. Earth had become the center of a new galactic community, not through force but through innovation and cooperation. The old council had been right to fear humanity's potential. They just hadn't understood what that potential truly was, not for conquest, but for transformation. Not to rule the galaxy, but to help it evolve into something greater than the sum of its parts. The council's worst fear had indeed come true. But the reality was better than anyone could have imagined.